This podcast is produced by OnPod, a video content studio near you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are here with Jamie Scott, who is a management student, and Laura Pottle, who is a finance student at the Telfer School of Management, both part of a micro program in management consulting. You both have leadership roles with the Telfer Competitions Committee. What has leadership looked like for you as students, and how do you balance your extracurriculars?
I think for me, leadership has been an evolution. I think for a lot of students, you start kind of at the bottom level of the club. For us, it's business case competition. So we kind of start competing and participating, and you kind of find something that you almost fall in love with, and you kind of naturally progress through that leadership position. So for me, it's been a lot of that progression of kind of stepping up into the different leadership roles. And in terms of balancing, at times it can be a lot. I think both of us put a lot on our plates, whether it's extracurriculars, case competitions, our courses, and wanting to succeed academically. I think for me, it's a lot about prioritization. And I think even in the workplace and working in the consulting industry, you know, you're always going to have so many tasks on your plate, and you can never get them all done in one day. So I think it's about understanding what's the most important, what's the most urgent, and being able to prioritize it is really what helps me balance. And just always keeping a list, write everything down, and try to just take one thing at a time.
Yeah, I really agree. I think a big part of it too is just, knowing how much to put on your plate and your own limits. And I think personally for me, being a busy person is actually what helps me, because when I have too much free time, that's when I tend to put things off and procrastinate. So I like the saying, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, because it's true. When you have so much to do, there's no time to put things off. So I really do agree. I think it's about prioritization and just like what means the most to you. When you enter university and like the real workforce, there's 1,000 opportunities out there, and it's just, what are you going to take on? So yeah, I think learning your own limits is really important too, knowing when to say yes and when to say no. I think that's a big thing that I've learned in recent months, knowing also when to put your foot down and draw your own boundaries, to know like, okay, I've taken on too much at this point. But kind of like Laura said, I think it's really a big balance. And it's just about taking on what you can, and your mindset and your mentality through it all is super important too. Are you staying positive through it all, or is the stress kind of getting to you? So I think maintaining a positive mentality and also being surrounded by people who are just supportive and also have the same ambitions as you, I think is really helpful, because you're kind of all pushing yourselves towards the same goal at the end of the day. So I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, it's really great to get to know yourself and practice that for sure.
Yeah.
As student leaders, how do you create space for others, especially women, to step into leadership positions and feel empowered to use their voice?
For me, I think you start off really young in your life and your career. Having those mentors and leaders make space for you. I think for a lot of young girls, it might start with your mother or your grandmother or an older sibling or a family member who really encourages you to like shoot for your dreams and like go for what you want. And I think then when you get into more of the university and extracurricular space, there might be mentors, whether it's teachers or professors or people at the Telfer School of Management that really help mentor you and help push you to where they know you can go. And I think that once you see someone who wants to mentor you and how much they helped you, it makes you want to do that for other people. And I think that once you understand that, you can create space for others because you want to provide other students with what has been provided to you. And I think that's what creating space for others is about. And then that almost inspires them to do the same for the next generation of leaders. And it keeps going on. I think that, creating space for other women is about understanding that there's a spot for everyone at the top. There's a spot for everyone to succeed, and everyone's different. And understanding that you have to go for what works for you and what you want ultimately, I think is what's like really helped me be able to mentor others and help them understand that everyone's different. And at the end of the day, what works for you isn't going to work for everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really big on the whole role model thing, because I think when you're young and kind of getting up to that level, you look up to certain people. And like Laura mentioned some good examples, but I think continuing that on and being a role model for the next person, especially like women in business, I think that's a really big thing. Just being a body to show that like, yeah, this is possible and I'm here proving it. I think that's really big. And I'm super big on mentorship too. I'm actually a mentor with the Telfer School of Management. So we mentor incoming first years to the university. And to me, mentorship is so huge, because I don't think I would be where I am without the mentors that helped guide me. And it's kind of the same, giving back to others. And I think when you see someone who has done it, kind of gives you the confidence boost that you need to start off. And they say the hardest thing is to start. And I think once you do it and once you, kickstart into that role, it gets a little easier. And so I think generally it's just being that role model and showing, being living proof that we've done it, it's possible, and you can be that person too. And just helping them build that little seed of confidence and planting it within them. Because once you have that, I think you're off.
Yeah, that's actually a huge part in motivation, to be able to see people that have done it before you so you can actually continue on. It's great to have that support system for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's important for business students to engage in conversation about women's rights and gender equality?
I think in today's society and in today's university environment, we see a lot more gender equality. We see a lot more people understanding that there should be a seat at the table of everyone, regardless of gender identity. And I think that because so much progress has been made, sometimes it's easy to forget that there's still a long way to go. I think continuing to have those conversations about women's rights, about women in leadership, about women in business, we need to identify where the gaps still are and where barriers still exist so we can understand how to move forward. Because yes, progress has been made. Yes, we're moving forward in a more equitable society. But at the end of the day, there's still lots of work to do. And without conversations about the work that's going to be done, the needle won't move forward. So I think it's important to continue the conversation and continue progressing.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're at a really good standing. Like Laura mentioned, we've made a lot of great progress, but I think there's still that awareness component. And I think a big part of, moving forward in these challenges is just people understanding what's actually going on. And I think we'll talk about it a little later, but like awareness campaigns for these sort of things are so important because, education and teaching people the current state and what's going on, I think is the most important. And I think it ties back to being those role models and being those leadership positions, whether that be on clubs or taking initiatives in our own career paths. So I think just continuing to push awareness and kind of stand for what you believe in is a really big thing. And I think that's also kind of like why we're here and why this is so important to us, is to kind of just be that voice for people moving forward.
Yeah, when you're immersed in it every day like you guys are, I'm sure it's a lot easier to miss those holes, but when you zoom out and you look at it as a whole perspective, it's great to be able to patch those up and be part of the change that helps do that. So that's really awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of changes or awareness do you hope to see when it comes to supporting women and equality in leadership?
Kind of like I mentioned before, there's been a lot of progress made, especially I think for us working in the consulting industries. I've worked in the finance industry a bit. When you kind of enter the workforce at that entry level position, I think today we're seeing a lot more of an equal hiring process between men, women, and other gender identities. But it's interesting because as the companies seem to progress towards the top is when more of those inequities seem to lie. I think we saw a statistic recently that of the most largest publicly traded companies in Canada, only 4% have female CEOs. So I think moving forward, it's great that we're making space for more women in university and extracurriculars in the hiring process, but getting promoted and being at that really top level in some of these really competitive industries, it's really important to see women representation at the top, because the things that we've aimed for, we're still young, we're still evolving in our careers. The things we've aimed for, we've seen women in these industries. And it can be a bit intimidating when you maybe picture yourself as a CEO or yourself as a partner in a company and there's very little women at those kind of higher up positions. I think as we see women progress in higher up positions, that's when we'll really feel inspired that we can also do it and that progress is truly being made. And I think it is happening, but it's slowly and we're moving forward one step at a time. So I think that's the biggest thing I would like to see is equal representation at all levels within a company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is a conversation Laura and I have a lot. I mean, we strive for many of the same goals. We've worked in the same industry. And so I think kind of like she mentions, at this stage of life, it's easy. You see women in leadership every day. But I think it's kind of like the future state. And once we get to that stage in life when there's going to be that, kind of that hole to fill in our careers, I think that's where we're kind of going to realize, and you want more awareness at those stages. So like I said, I think it's just kind of down the line, and I think Laura really alluded to it, but it's once you get to those big positions, and of course, I think those are ambitions that a lot of young women have, that one day I'm going to be that next partner. I'm going to be a CEO of my own startup. And so I think it's important also that even at our stage of life right now, having those people in those positions, again, as role models and people who we can look up to, because right now with that lack of presence of top people in industries, I think it can be challenging for us to even envision that as a future, because it's not really a recipe we have in our minds. And so I think continuing the awareness portion for that and understanding that you can be that next person and kind of just what's it going to take to get there.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you're propelling these narratives, because from a standpoint, like if you're looking at it from within, it's like climbing up a wall of loose stones. The taller you get on the ladder, the more likely you are to fall off. So it's great that you're solidifying that and kind of keeping that going. Mm-hmm. So your student organization, the Telfer Competitions Committee, is known for using business as a tool for positive change. Can you give an example of an initiative students at Telfer or within your JDC delegation are taking on to women's rights?
Yeah, so our organization, the Telfer Competitions Committee, what we do is we send students to business case competitions every year. We do 4 main traveling external business case competitions, and while our students compete across academic disciplines, there's also a huge philanthropy component in making an impact on our society as business students and kind of seeing how social impact and business connect. So this year for one of our competitions, Jeunesse, we have an initiative to raise awareness for women's rights, something that's very important to both of us. So it really aligned perfectly that we kind of got to be the ones to champion our initiative. And what we're doing is really an awareness campaign, kind of on 2 prongs. We want to educate the public about the barriers that still exist that women face, not just in business, but in their daily lives. And we also want to share the resources that are available to women, because there are so many resources out there, whether it's scholarships or support systems or organizations that are really there to support women. People often don't know about it. So we've been doing a lot of awareness and resource sharing. And we also had an awareness event on October 24th at University Square. And one of the things that I, really reflected on at the event is we did a take a step forward activity. We kind of asked, 15 or 20 so questions, like take a step forward if you've ever worried about pay inequality among your peers, or take a step forward if you've ever felt unsafe walking home at night. And, by the end of our 20 questions, there was a clear division of women who had all stepped forward. And we really got to see those barriers that still exist and really help the public understand that these barriers still exist. It's still a work in progress. We still need to create awareness for women's rights. So I think this campaign has been really special to us. And I think it's something that won't end after this campaign. It's something our committee and our university will continue pushing forward. And yeah, I'm not sure if you have anything to add about our initiatives, but they've definitely been really important to us.
Yeah, I mean, for the event as a whole, I think was really successful, and it was a really big, again, awareness portion and helped people understand kind of the gaps that still exist. But I think kind of speaking to the whole business component of it and kind of how we can help in our community in various ways, I think that, that approach of giving back, I mean, we always have a contribution component to these competitions that we attend. And I think it's just so great to see that we understand that there's a need in our community, and we understand that we have the potential to help. I'm super big on volunteering and giving back in the community, and it's so great to see these being involved within our schools and our curriculums. And we say I guess for nonprofits, there's 3 ways to give, being time, talent, and treasure. And so a lot of people our age tend to think you can only give through money, right? Sign off a big check and that's it. And I think that's why a lot of people our age tend to step back a little bit from these organizations and giving back, because we think we're just not able to at this stage of our life. But I think being in business and through these different competitions, we understand through our time and through our talent, we're also able to help. And so through these competitions, sometimes we'll see cases being written about nonprofits, and we're here to solve and tackle their challenges. And so I think creating and fostering those collaborations between nonprofits in the community and educational institutions, we have so much potential. We have students with bright minds who come up with great solutions. And so I think seeing that connection being built is really proving to us that we're taking those steps forward necessary and ultimately helping everyone achieve the same goal.
That's great. Yeah, time is a huge thing. I think in business, a lot of the time, A lot of the time, what you don't see is that when you are trying to build something up, you are giving your time away for free. Like you could be a CEO or you could work for a company, but if you start a business from the ground up, you're working for free. So it's great to, one, I don't want to say get into that habit, but know that you can contribute with your time as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do want to say as well, when you're in a community like that, I think it's great to, you know, you can start a company, you can found something, you have a little bit more support. You don't have to climb up that ladder and be worried about that 4%. Like I might not be a CEO, you can be a CEO in your own right as well. So like Laura said, you have some resources, like the government can give you some bursaries for that, or they can give you some grants for starting your own business. So it's great to check in with narratives like that as well.
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to other young women who want to get involved in leadership or advocacy, but don't know where to start?
Starting is probably the hardest part. But once you truly start, it's like a snowball effect and it just keeps building. And I think my biggest tip for any student on getting started in anything is just being curious and asking questions. I think it can be really intimidating, you know, if you want to get into a really competitive industry or you want to make a difference, but you don't know where to start. It can be very intimidating seeing those around you who may already be accomplished and not knowing really how they did it. But I think being curious, asking questions is the best way to do it. You're going to meet so many people in your career, in your university experience, and your network is your biggest tool. And I think by asking questions, learning, attending events, attending career fairs, attending club fairs, there's different ways to be able to inquire about the things you're interested in. And, you know, the more questions you ask, the more answers you'll find, and the more you'll find your footing and the way you want to start in whatever initiative you'd like to get involved in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think starting is the hardest part. But I think in general too, you know, kind of just being able to kickstart and having the confidence to do so. And I think people often in life wait for the right time to start something. And I think we've all learned that there's never a right time. You kind of just need to go for it and things will play out the way that they play out. And something I always, you know, try and encourage is to have confidence in yourself. I think it's really easy at this stage of life to sell ourselves short, to have imposter syndrome and to be like, I don't belong here. I'm not the one to be holding this big position. And I think, you know, I always try and encourage those in my surroundings or students that I talk to through mentorship that you need to stop selling yourself short and you need to have confidence, because people can see right through you and you bring a certain energy with you when you walk into a room. And so I think just empowering them in that way and showing them that, like, yeah, you're super capable of what you're doing right now and holding this role. I think that's something super important that I always try to push on students. And I always, you know, say, whether this be landing a job or wanting a position and doing something, that you need to have the mentality that they want you as much as you want them and that you are a value add to your team. That kind of plays into the selling yourself short. You know, we may not have 10 years of experience and we may not come into a company and bring them billions in revenue, but we are curious students. We are involved in our community, creative in various different ways. And so we do bring our own set of skills and expertise to the table. And I think it's just empowering young women and people in general to understand that you are a value add no matter what room you step in, and to help build them that confidence and that mindset that you're super capable of it. And again, continuing to be those role models for them.
Yeah, I feel like everybody has imposter syndrome at some point in their life for sure. And something that I've even learned by doing this is that CEOs seem scary. Like there's this huge connotation when you want to talk to them, like there's like this impending wall between you and them, but a lot of them are so down to earth, and a lot of them have even spoken to me that there's a time where they don't know what they're doing all the time. So it's great to just get in there and talk and, you know, bring yourself, you know, level the playing field. I don't want to say it like that, but just realize that everybody is human. So that's great as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's one lesson you've learned through your university experience that you'll carry with you beyond university in business, leadership, and in life?
Yeah, honestly, I think for this one, it's kind of a lot of things that we've talked about today of just learning. I think for me, a big thing this year has been learning when to say no. And it can sound pessimistic, but I've always been the type to say yes to everything and yes to every opportunity. But I think slowly but surely you start to realize when you add a lot onto your plate, it can actually become super overwhelming and you tend to put less effort into all the things that you've kind of tasked to yourself. So I think a big thing for me this year has been learning when to say no and also learning when to set my own boundaries. And I think that's really important moving through your career and through the workforce, is understanding what your personal boundaries are and what you're able to take on and not. Like Laura said, no one functions the same way. We don't all have the same capacities, and that's okay. And I think, when we look up to these leaders and these role models, we tend to think like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do to get there and I need to follow their exact steps. But the truth is we're all going to take a different path to get there. And I think it's also understanding that nothing good comes easy. It takes hardships. It takes some sacrifices to get to what you want to do. But if you're willing to do those things and you surround yourself by the right people who are going to help you push that. And I think that's a great part of our committee and just like the community that we've built at school. And I think we really all see Telfer as being a huge family because everyone genuinely pushes you to become the best version of yourself. And you build such a powerful network of people helping and pushing you to get to that finish line. So I think in general, build your network, rely on others. You're never going to get to the finish line alone. And it's okay to ask for help and to get resources from others. And you can carve your own path to get to that finish line that you want to get to.
Yeah, I totally echo that. I think for me, building off of that, my biggest lesson has been to not compare yourself to other people. And I think it's a lifelong journey that we all go on in our personal lives as women. You might compare your appearance to other people or the way you speak or the way you carry yourself or your success. You might compare it to other people. You might think your resume isn't as good as someone else or your LinkedIn isn't as fancy as someone else. But I think at the end of the day, what Jamie was saying is we're all on our own path. We're all on our own journey. We're all in completely different programs, completely different backgrounds and experiences that make us who we are. And there's no point of comparing yourself to someone else who's completely different from you. We're all on our own journeys. And I think that finding confidence within yourself for who you are instead of seeking value of matching somebody else's energy is really important, because if you start to compare yourself to someone else, you're going to lose sight of what you actually want. And when you really find yourself and separate from all the external pressures, all the people around you giving you unsolicited advice and telling you what they think you should do, you'll really be able to figure out what you want for yourself and who you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Get rid of that noise for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I just had someone in, Julia Brutesco. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She does like a leadership program, and she was saying that to be a leader, you have to rely on other people, like you were saying, Jamie. And there's also different ways. So she separated the different types of people or leaders you can be into DISC. If you ever want to look into that, I kind of encourage you to do so because it was very interesting to me. I know you guys are very immersed in this, but if you want to check out a different way that everybody can be different and how people need to interact to solve problems and come together to solve problems, and that's great as well.
I think there's always something to be learned from new theories and frameworks, and yeah.
Okay, so what motivated you guys to pursue internships at one of the big four firms, and what did that experience teach you about the realities of the business world?
Yeah, so I think for me, really getting into it was thanks to case competitions. I started as of my first year in university. I'm now in third year. So it's been a little while going, and I just last summer landed my first internship. But I think case competitions as a whole really allude to what the career kind of looks like. It's a very simplified version of it, but it's very much solving problems for businesses. And my path was actually a little different before even thinking about business, because I think in high school there's a big lack of presence of business. We have a very limited amount of courses on it. And so originally I was convinced that I was going to become a psychologist. That was the path I wanted to go on. And I was sure of that. And then I took a specialized business program in grade 11 and I started dipping my toes into business. And I was like, okay, wait, there's more out there. And I really did like the business aspect of things. And so I applied to the Telfer School of Management in HR because I figured it's still holding on to that people side of things. I really did like that interaction and that connection with people. And then through case competitions, I actually had an HR case and I realized I actually don't like HR at all. There's a lack of creativity. I wasn't solving anything. And so case comps are actually a really great way to discover what you're good at, what you like. And so through this process, I switched my major to management, and I had also applied for the micro program in management consulting, which we've both gone through. And I think generally speaking, it kind of confirmed for me, yeah, this is an industry I really want to get into. And consulting as a whole, I think was just a huge passion of mine and a goal that I really did want to reach. And so I think landing an internship at the Big Four has always been a big, ideal world, and landing was kind of just super surreal. But yeah.
Yes, honestly, the same with me. So I actually was born and raised in Newfoundland. And when I came to university, I didn't know anything. We didn't have a single business course in high school, nothing like that. And I just decided to try my hand at finance. And, I moved out here. I did not know a thing about what I was doing. And I kind of immediately found myself not passionate about what I was doing. The numbers weren't resonating with me. The buzz around investment banking wasn't making me feel inspired. And but I always loved public speaking. I always loved presenting, and I always loved kind of commanding a room. So I had a friend recommend business case competitions to me, and I started case competitions and I fell in love. I had no idea the association they had with different career paths. I just loved it. I loved problem solving. I loved presenting. I loved pitching, and I loved learning, because you learn so much by doing business case competitions. And, again, I had a mentor tell me, that a business case competition is really a simulated consulting environment, right? Like, you're given a case problem about a business and you're asked to solve it. So that's when I kind of started my journey into the micro program in management consulting, and just completely fell in love with it. I loved problem solving. I loved working with clients, getting that human interaction, and kind of straying away from that number side of things was really, it really resonated with me and made me feel passionate about what I was doing. So when I started consulting, I actually started at a smaller consulting firm that was more focused on small, medium enterprises, and absolutely loved it. I had a great experience, but, I just thought I would try something new by applying to a Big Four. I had been rejected by tons of Big Fours before in the past, and I just thought, why not shoot my shot and see what would happen? And, lo and behold, I got accepted to EY and did my internship there, and I absolutely loved it. And I think a lot of the consulting firms are very similar to one another. I think that as long as you're passionate about the career, about problem solving, about the types of job tasks you'll be doing, you'll more or less have a pretty similar experience across different firms. But, it's taught me a lot about the business world, and it's taught me that businesses have problems too. And at the end of the day, they still need people to solve them. And I think being a fixer and being a problem solver really resonated with me. And I think that's what I learned most about businesses, is that they're just like people too. They have their own problems and struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys seem very entrenched in this. Like, it's very evident that you spend day after day actually going through these, motions and getting things done. When you are in a case competition, there's a lot of pressure that goes along with that, right? Because you're right on the stand, you have to solve things right away. Like, how does that kind of work? Do you mind explaining that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So leading up to the case competition, you'll do a weekly 4-hour practice to kind of prepare yourself for it. But how it works is you're given a business case. It could be anywhere from 2 to 20 pages, and it essentially will just give you some background information on the business, the problem they're facing, and then you have 3 hours to deliver a pitch deck, which essentially is doing some analysis and proposing a solution to the problem the business is facing. And then you present immediately after your 3-hour case crack. You'll do a 20-minute presentation with a team of 3 and about a 10-minute Q&A period. And it is a lot of pressure, but the practice is really, I also think pressure makes diamonds.
Yeah.
And the practice is a really important component of it. And I think the more you do, the better you get. Personally, I think I've done like 10 or 20 cases by now, and I still am learning every single practice. We're actually on the same case teams this year, and we learn each week. We get better each week, and that's something that I think business case competitions has taught us as well. Like, you can always improve, you can always learn more. But yeah, that's kind of how they work.
Yeah, it's definitely a high pressure environment, but I think also it alludes to the career. Like, you have deliverables, you have tight deadlines. And so practicing early on now to be able to meet those standards and to know, like, there's 30 minutes left on the clock and we're missing a big amount of our pitch deck, like, we've got to figure out one way or another. It teaches you to work with people and to solve problems together. Oftentimes we will have conflicting ideas on, like, what the solution is for this business or how we're going to approach the case. We butt heads, but I think that's, again, it's powerful to be going through that right now, because you need to solve it. And when you approach that panel of judges, you need to look like a cohesive team, and you need to come in strong, and, back the solution that you're pitching to them. Because again, they see the confidence that you bring into the room and they see right through you. So I think it's shown us a lot of various aspects of the career, and it's allowed us to practice those early on in our career now.
Yeah, you guys really have to think on your feet. That's pretty crazy. And especially like solving problems, you have to be so open and vulnerable to another person's, criticism of your idea or something like that. So that takes a lot when you only got 3 hours to prepare. I applaud you for that, for sure. Going back to the internships now, what were some of the biggest surprises or learning curves you faced during your internship?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think for me, I thought that at a certain point in my internship, it was a 4-month internship and it was my first ever one in consulting. And for some reason, I thought that at a certain point, I would feel good about what I know. And I was like, I got this. But it was like every single day of that internship up until the last day where I handed in my laptop, there was something I did not know. And, I think for some industries, you feel like you can grasp onto it pretty quickly. Maybe after a 2-week training, you've got it in the bag. And it's, for sure, as time goes on, you get better at what you're doing. But the amount of learning and immersive experiences that there are in consulting, I think was really shocking to me, because I just kept thinking like, yeah, I'm going to get to that stage where I know it, or, I have a good understanding of what's going on. And at the very last day of my internship, I would walk into those meeting rooms completely lost as to what was going on, what the table was talking about, but it was kind of just fake it till you make it and you'll figure it out. And there's people to ask those questions to, but I think that was something interesting to me was, wow, there is so much to know. It's a new language. There's new vocabulary out there. There's plenty of different businesses you're working with and types of clients that you could be facing. So I think being in such an immersive environment really taught me there is so much to learn within this. And
Yeah, a little bit of a different perspective. So I did the co-op program. So I've done about 5 internships in both consulting and also dipped my toes into financial modeling. And I really was surprised at how much freedom and autonomy interns are given. I think when you hear the word intern, you think you might go get coffee for the executives or you might be doing meaningless tasks. But in these competitive industries, you're treated just as any other entry-level staff as an intern. You're given decision-making power. You're given freedom to take on initiatives, to step up to the plate. And if you're like a go-getter personality, the type of person that always wants to take on new things, take on new challenges, they will allow you to do that. So I think that I was really surprised at how much I was able to take on and how much I was able to grow. And you really are allowed to exist in the company and do as much as you want to and want to step up to the plate too. And I think that was something I really appreciated in my co-ops, was being able to have that freedom to actually do meaningful work. And you learn the best by doing. So I think that how the co-op program allows you to actually get involved in the industry was something really special to me.
That's awesome. I love both of your perspectives on that. That's great. What advice would you give to other students hoping to secure a position at a Big Four or a similar firm?
Yeah, I would definitely say, building off of what I was saying earlier about being curious and asking questions, I think that a lot of students that I've talked to and chatted with can get intimidated if they don't have work experience, because I think landing your first internship or your first work experience is the hardest because there's not a lot on your resume to go off of. But there are things to go off of. You can get involved in extracurriculars, you can get involved with your community, you can get involved in volunteering. And I think that students get so overwhelmed by the fact that it's sometimes so difficult to break into these industries that they forget that there's other ways to get involved. Like we said, case competitions is basically a little mini consulting scenario. And there's programs like the micro program in management consulting, and Telfer has the micro program in capital markets. So I think that getting involved in extracurriculars, and if you don't have work experience, try to build your resume in another way. Try to continue asking questions, learning about the companies you want to be interested in, because there's a lot of buzz around some of these jobs, right? Like me being a finance student, you hear a lot about investment banking, a lot about financial modeling, and I kind of fell under that trap and wanted to try out that industry. But I learned that if I had actually taken a step back and analyzed my personality, what I wanted, what I was good at, I would have realized that, the consulting industry was much more suited for me. So I think tune out the noise, be curious, ask questions, get involved, and figure out what it really is that you want for yourself.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think for me, it alludes to a lot of the things I had said earlier about, having a confidence when you're going into these interviews and all these things. But I think it's also be prepared for the pressure that's going to come with it. It's obvious that it's a very competitive industry. And I think it's just preparing your mindset that you're going to face these pressures and it's going to challenge you. And that's the point of all of it. And to not crack under that pressure and to prepare yourself to, maybe have the wrong answer, maybe mess up, but to still be able to keep on going. And I think just not to fear these these big companies and these big ambitions as like something daunting to you. Like, see them as ambitions and goals that you want to run to and that you want to chase in your career. I think for me, like, that perspective switch is super important, because it can either scare you or it can motivate you, and you're kind of going to choose the way you want to go about that. But I'm also really passionate about everything else that you do to help gain your expertise. And I'm really big on volunteering and doing all these extracurriculars, because it's hard when you're like just in your second year undergrad applying to these huge positions, because you're like, I'm fighting against master's students and, you know, big dual degrees. And it's like, what do I have? And so I think it's just understanding anything that you do is going to help you get there. Volunteering, extracurriculars, joining clubs. You know, you don't need 10 years of industry experience, or you don't need to work for a prestigious name to be let into those rooms. I think you need to do what you need to do for yourself. And I think a big part of that is being, you know, own it to yourself, say yes to those opportunities and go chase them, because at the end of the day, no one's going to hold your hand to that finish line. And I think that's a big lesson to learn, that you need to want those things and you need to be ready to go get them. And if you do what it takes, you're going to get to where you want to go. Because I think those are the ambitions we both had. We knew the end goal and we did what we had to do to get there, and it all worked out. So I think that's kind of the main premises.
Yeah, and I think you guys were saying this a little bit at the beginning too. Sometimes you just got to start, and then you got to trial and error of what works, what doesn't. Realize if it's not for you, you take another direction. If something continuously doesn't work, you got to change your method. So it's good to figure those things out as well. So in big firms like that, how did you approach networking and relationship building with, you know, all these people?
I am personally someone who deals with social anxiety, and networking was very intimidating to me when I first started. I would get so nervous going into networking events, but something that kind of sticks with me is, it's a very cliche saying, but success is where opportunity meets preparation. In your degree, whatever it is you're pursuing, you're going to have opportunities presented to you, and it's up to you to prepare for them and work hard to put yourself in a position where you can succeed. Whether it's a job interview, are you prepared? Have you done your research? Are you ready to make a good first impression? If it's a networking event, again, are you prepared? Are you well researched? Are you ready to be the best version of yourself? And I think a lot of that preparation comes through practice. You know, you start your first few coffee chats or networking events, and you might walk out and be like, wow, that was really awkward, or I did not know what to say. And just the more you put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, the more you'll be prepared. And like I said earlier, we're still young, you know, we're still so early in our careers, but the both of us are going to be damn sure that we are going to be prepared and we're going to work hard. So when we're presented with opportunities, we'll be able to succeed in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, it's understanding that no matter the big titles these people have, they're humans at the end of the day. They're probably like a dad and have a child your age. Like, I think we sort of lose touch of that human aspect, because we're like, oh my God, that's the partner, and everyone's so scared. But it's like, these people are so eager to talk to you and to learn from you.
Yeah.
And everyone in the industry genuinely has such an open heart. Even within the firms that we work in, people coffee chat left and right. Like, it's part of your daily routine, and you connect with people in your actual firm as well. And so I think it's just understanding that everyone is open to it. Everyone wants to meet you, wants to talk to you, wants to get to know you, and just not being afraid of those big titles, because yeah, they may be partners, they might even be a CEO, but that entails their years of experience and, you know, all the expertise that they have to share with you. And seriously, knowledge is wealth, and these big people want to pass this on to the future generation. They want to tell us how we got there, and that's going to help us eventually get to that stage and know, like, what did you go through? Because they've definitely gone through hardships. They've definitely faced, you know, blocks in the road. And so I think just having that willingness to talk to people and moving past that barrier, because it is scary doing that first one. And some of them are really awkward. Some of them don't land well, but hey, you tried. And I think it's just continuing to push on those conversations and being eager to learn from others, because they have years to share with you on kind of their experience.
And they want to help. They really do.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they were in the exact same position as you were at one point in time. And I'm sure they didn't forget it, because CEOs are people persons.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's one piece of feedback you received that changed the way you approach your work or leadership?
Yeah, for me, a senior manager actually told this to me once through consulting, and he told me sometimes it's okay to have more questions than answers. And I think that was kind of just reassuring to me, because in the industry and in these high pressure environments, you tend to think I need to know it all, especially when you're the person we're turning to for the answers, right? Like you're the consultant, someone else is facing the issue and they're coming to you. You're like, oh my God, I need to know it all. And the truth is you don't, and you can be prepared to not, you're going to face situations where you have more questions than answers. And I think it was just a really reassuring perspective to hear from someone else, because it was like, okay, you can go through this. And even like CEOs and top partners don't know all the answers. And I think sometimes we tend to forget that. Like they may not know it all, but what they do know is that, they have the vision, they have the driving force, and they know that they're going to figure it out. They know that they have a team backing them. And so I think for me, it's kind of reminding myself those little things that if I don't know the question to an answer, you don't need to be hard on yourself. It's not because you're not perfect or you don't know all the answers. It's that, okay, maybe this is a moment of reflection. Maybe right now you need to lean on your team and you need to go talk to someone who's gone through this. So I think it's just really understanding the landscape and understanding that people are out there for you and to help you. And I think truly that was a big learning curve for me.
Yeah, I think for me in my business degree, I've learned a lot about working in a team, because I've always been the kind of person who really wants to be high achieving, wants to deliver really high quality of work and wants to do my best. And in business, there's a lot of group work. Sometimes you don't get to choose your groups, etc. And actually the manager of the micro program in management consulting, Vicky Lemire, we kind of had a talk one time and I said, I'm really struggling working in groups because I have this idea of what I want my quality of work to be. And if I'm working with a team member that I don't feel is holding that same quality, like it really affects me mentally. And I feel like it's a reflection of my work if someone in the group isn't carrying your weight. And Vicky taught me a lot about the fact that when you're working in a team, you're not learning how to do other people's work for them. You're learning how to work with a team. And you're learning how you can contribute to a team and help make your team members the best they can be and have them make you the best version of yourself. I learned a lot about letting go of control and accepting other people's opinions and perspectives and working with a team. And I think for a lot of students that are very high achieving and they know what they want and they know what they want their work to look like, working in a team can be very stressful. And I think through the feedback I've received, I've learned a lot about working in teams and meeting people halfway. And I think that's really important, especially in some of these industries we've talked about.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. If listeners were to remember one thing from today's conversation about women in business, leadership, or anything else, what should it be?
Yeah. I would say success is where opportunity meets preparation. If you are a mentor or a woman in leadership, help create those opportunities. And if you are a young girl, a woman who wants to succeed, be prepared. And I think that if we can all come together and uplift each other, then, we'll make a more equitable society and make more room for women at the top and have everyone's voices be valued regardless of gender identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for me, it would generally just be take that first step and don't wait for the right time because it's never going to come. And, like a lot of things that we've kind of answered through today, lean on your peers, be ready to face those high pressure moments and just to go through it because nothing is going to be a smooth ride. You're going to face those moments of trial. And if you crumble under that pressure, that's kind of when you lose hope of your end sight. And so I think it's just be prepared for the journey you're going to get on. When you have that end goal, it's going to be a struggle to get there and you're going to go through highs and lows where you're going to, see various different aspects of these end goals that you have. But I think it's just be prepared to go through that journey and understand that the lows are not the end of it for you and that there's something better coming around and you really just need to stick it through those hard parts. So, to anyone younger wanting to kind of take that first step, you kind of just need to do it and take it. And like Laura kind of mentioned earlier, once it starts, it's really a rolling effect and it won't stop.
Yeah, thank you so much for your advice today. Really, when it comes down to it, you both are very motivational. And I think if anyone was listening, like these girls are on top of it. You can really tell from this podcast. But if you do want to try something, fail a couple times, that's totally okay too. But yeah, Jamie and Laura, thank you so much. This has been really, I'm sure, resonant for a lot of people as well. So I appreciate all the information you've given to us today.
Yeah, thank you for having us and allowing us to spark some important conversations today.
Yeah, thank you.